Hello and welcome to Peer Leadership Training from Montana's Peer Network. Thank you for joining me today for this training. Before we get started, I want to read this disclaimer. The views and opinions and content expressed in this presentation do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions or policies for CMHS or for SAMHSA, Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration, or the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. The Peer Advocacy and Leadership Project, PAL, is funded through a SAMHSA statewide consumer network grant program. Now, the Peer Advocacy and Leadership, or PAL project, actually has 6 different trainings. And as you can see on your screen here, we're going to be talking about peer leadership. But if you haven't taken any of these other trainings, I would encourage you to do so. You don't have to take them in any particular order, but just know that there are 6 components to the Peer Advocacy and Leadership Project. We are super excited about this PAL series. It provides training and education to people in recovery and how to be better advocates and be better leaders. My name is Jim Haney. I'm the Executive Director for Montana's Peer Network. And I want to welcome you again to this training. Thank you for taking the time. A little bit about Montana's Peer Network. Our mission is to lead the expansion and development of recovery-oriented behavioral health services in Montana. We're a statewide 501c3 nonprofit. We've been leading the recovery movement since 2011. We have more than, and it's actually 1,600 members. We just crossed over the 1,600 mark, which is super exciting, across Montana. And we do all kinds of cool things. We have Recovery Talks podcasts each week. We do monthly Realizing Recovery webinars. We do virtual and in-person trainings and presentations and consultation. And everything is centered around peer support and recovery, training, advocacy. You can visit our website for more information at mtpeernetwork.org. So, what are we going to cover today in peer leadership training? We're going to talk about what is it? What is a peer? What is leadership? Then we're going to talk about leadership styles and levels. Then we're going to take that and combine it together to talk about peer leadership, future action. If you don't already, I would suggest grabbing something to write on. This is a great quote from John C. Maxwell. If you want to have a positive impact on the world, learning to lead better will help you do it. And we're going to talk quite a bit about John C. Maxwell a little bit later in the presentation. He is a very inspirational speaker, teaches about leadership. That's kind of his specialty. And again, we're gonna talk more about him a little bit later. I got interested in leadership training, of course, through being a peer supporter, but being the executive director of Montana's Peer Network, where we were leading the efforts to try and get certification for peer support and do advocacy work for funding to improve services. And so I had to learn about what does it really mean to how to be a good leader. And in doing that, it made me look at my entire life and other opportunities that I had, experiences that I had been through where I was in leadership roles. And over the years, I've had the opportunity to help develop other leaders. It's something that I'm passionate about. And today, after 10 years here at Montana's Peer Network, my role as the executive director has changed, and I get the opportunity to do things like this, like teaching people about leadership skills so they can become even better advocates and better peer supporters so that they can lead the change, that we're working towards. So this is not just something that we decided to do. This is something personally passionate about. And I think it's really important in the recovery movement and the things that are happening across the state. We need leaders to speak up and bring their passions, and learning how to do that effectively and efficiently is vitally important to the movement. So some things for you to write down here. Write down some of the first things that come to mind when you hear the term peer leadership. And go ahead and press pause here on the video and just take a minute or two. When you hear the term peer leadership, what comes to mind? And just capture those, write those down. Press pause, and then when you're ready to restart, start the video back up again. McDonald's, we're all familiar with the Golden Arches. Ray Kroc, who was the founder, said the quality of a leader is reflected in the standards they set for themselves. I think it's really important as a leader to make sure that I'm not asking anybody to do anything I wouldn't do. I'm not asking others to go first. As a leader, I have to set a high standard for myself, and that's then reflected in the people who are following you. So let's identify some leaders. Okay, again, utilize the paper that you have there in front of you. Write down the names of 2 people, living or not, that you would consider a leader. Then next to each name, write down a few characteristics for each person. And again, go ahead and press pause. Take a few minutes. 2 people you consider a leader, and they could be living or not. And then next to each name, write down a few characteristics. And then restart the video when you're ready. Okay, did you think of 2 people that you consider a leader? Usually when I do this class, I ask people to do that. They can usually very quickly think of a couple of leaders. It usually doesn't take very long. Usually there's a few people that come to mind. Maybe these are people who have inspired you, people maybe you've met, maybe family or friends. Maybe it's people you work with. Maybe it's somebody you read about. Right? It doesn't really matter who it is, but it's important to identify the characteristics. Let's take a look for a minute here at leadership in other fields, not in the recovery field. So if we look at business, nursing, and sports, and these are just 3 that I chose. I went to a variety of websites to find these. These are considered, this list for each of these are considered the best leadership skills for each of these types of professions. So if you work in the business field, if you want to be a leader, you have to, have a mission and a vision, you have goals, competency, a strong team, communication skills, a can get it done attitude, need to be able to inspire others and have ambition. But when we go over to nursing, it changes. For nurses, it's about a boldness to advocate for patients, political savvy, resilience, empathy. That's certainly a big one, I think. Think of a nurse. Effective communication, financial acumen, and authenticity. And it changes again if we go into the sports field. Inclusiveness, critical thinking, sports intelligence. Do you understand the game? These are doers. They can balance their emotions and their behavior. Okay. Every field has its own characteristics and its own set of skills that are required. Now, you might be somebody who's worked in other fields. You might have been a leader in other fields. So when we begin talking about the work of peers, peer support, the recovery field, what are the types of things we might consider? I want you to ponder that, and we're going to keep talking about that throughout training. Have there been times in your own life when you were in a position of leadership, and what was that experience like for you? And so here again, I'm going to ask you to press pause and just write a few sentences. There was a time in your life when you were in a position of leadership. What was that experience like for you? And I'm saying that whether it was a good experience or not a good experience. Just when you were in a position of leadership, what was that like for you? Write down a few sentences, press pause, and don't forget to restart the video. Okay, did you write down a few sentences for what that leadership experience was like for you? So on the screen, you see a baseball. And I put that in there because my first experience that I had was when I was a senior in high school, and I was the catcher for my baseball team. And nobody ever came to me and told me that I was the leader of the team, right? The coach didn't pull me aside and say, "Hey, Jim, you're going to be the leader of the team. You're going to call the plays and the pitches and all this stuff." I hadn't played. I wasn't a catcher my whole growing up, my whole career playing baseball, little league, and all that. That was a position that I was put in, and I learned as the catcher that the coach gives signals to you, and then you give it to your players when you're in the field. Of course, the catcher calls the pitches that the pitcher is going to throw. The catcher is the leader of the 9 fielders that are out there. Nobody ever told me that. And when I reflect back in my life, I sort of wish somebody would have, because I might have approached it differently. I didn't know, so I just did the best I could, and I think I did all right. We won enough games. No one ever said that you were the leader, but I was clearly in a leadership role when I reflect back. So sometimes we can be in a role and not realize we are actually the leader. It's not always obvious. So when we take what is a peer and what is leadership, so I asked you that question a few minutes ago. Here's my description of peer. Okay. A person emphatically experiencing recovery, peer, P-E-E-R. That's my description. You have your own description of peer. This is a wonderful quote from the Gerald Ford Presidential Museum on leadership, a process by which a person influences others to accomplish an objective or directs the organization in a way to make it more coherent and cohesive. One who strives to be a good leader has to be honest, inspiring, intelligent, and stand firm for what he or she believes and not backing down. Another quote, this is from Forbes.com. That's a business magazine, if you're not familiar with it. A great leader possesses a clear vision, is courageous, has integrity, honesty, humility, and clear focus. Great leaders help people reach their goals, are not afraid to hire people that might be better than them, and take pride in accomplishments of those they help along the way. What does it feel like? It's another question for you. You're going to write down on your paper. What does it feel like when you're following an effective leader? And you can go ahead and press pause. Write that down for yourself. What does it feel like when you're following an effective leader? So before we get into the next section, leadership styles and levels, I want you to read over your piece of paper there. And on there, you have descriptive words for leadership, for peers. You may have experiences you wrote down when you were in a leadership role, what that was like. So take all of that into mind when we go into this next section, and we're going to talk specifically about leadership styles, okay? Because I'm going to ask you to identify your particular leadership style, okay? A leader's method of providing direction, implementing plans, and motivating people. What style do you have? And here they are. The first one is autocratic. In an autocratic leadership style, there's a separation between followers and the leader. It can also be very mission-driven. The next one is paternalistic. This is more like a parenting type of style or caretaking of others. independence for the followers is limited because the leader is very paternalistic. The next one is democratic. This is where there is shared decision making. Everybody plays a role. Everybody has input before a decision is made. The next style is laissez-faire. Power to the people, freedom of choice, self-rule. The group can make its own decisions individually. We don't have to have a manual or policies. Self-rule is evident here. Right? That's laissez-faire. And the last one that we're going to talk about is transactional. Leadership style that's transactional. This is reward, punishment. You do this, achieve this goal, you get this reward. You don't, here's the punishment. There's routines, there's policies and procedures along the way. Very different than, say, the paternalistic leadership style. Right? So which one of those styles do you relate to? You can write that down on your piece of paper there. Which style do you prefer to follow? Right? So there's two questions here. One is, which style do you relate to? Which one fits you when you're in a leadership role? But also, which style do you prefer to follow? And if you find yourself saying, well, sometimes I'm transactional, but sometimes I'm democratic, that's okay, because different situations require us to have different styles. If we need to get something done and we're on a deadline, we might want to have a more transactional or autocratic style because we're under a deadline. We have to get this finished by 5 o'clock. You may find yourself in different experiences, different events, different times, different followers may impact. You may be working with someone individually, you may be working with a group, and you may have to utilize different styles. Nothing wrong with that. What I'm asking you to identify is which style fits you, which is your sort of go-to style, and which do you prefer to follow. All right, so earlier I mentioned John C. Maxwell, and you can learn more about him at johnmaxwell.com, but he's an American author, a speaker, and a pastor. He's written many books, primarily focusing on leadership. At the time I put this together, he's got at least a dozen books. Each one is really, really good. The one I think he's most famous for is the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, but he's got a whole bunch of them. He's been on the New York Times bestsellers list. He has a podcast. So if you really dig in what we got going on here with the peer leadership, you want to learn more about leadership, you can go listen to his podcast. It's really good. He's got tons of videos on YouTube. We have his books here in the office at MPN. So this next section comes directly from John C. Maxwell and his 5 levels of leadership. So we just talked about styles, and styles are horizontal. They're all equal. Now we're going to go vertical. So whatever style you are, now we go vertical. So the first level of leadership is position. People follow you because they have to. A good example of this is you get a new job, you start somewhere, you get introduced to your supervisor. They have a name badge that says supervisor. Okay, that's the beginning or starting level, level 1 of leadership. You have that title of a leader because of your position. Now, if we go vertical, the next level up is permission. People follow you because they want to, because you can give them permission to do things or to achieve things. A good leader should always be talking with the people who he's leading or she's leading, and be asking them, what are their goals? What are the things that are important to them? A good leader gives people permission, and that causes your followers to want to follow you. That gives them confidence. They achieve the things that they want, okay? Number three is production. People follow because of what you have done. You have achieved things. You have the position. You give people permission. Okay. And you now are getting things accomplished. Remember the description of in the business world, a can-do attitude, accomplishing things. The next level up, level number 4, is people development. People follow you because of what you can do for them. When you're in the people development stage of leadership, this is where you're bringing people along with you. You are mentoring them to become leaders themselves. Now, some people never really get to this level. I think when I think about leadership and all my different experiences, I think most people go to level number 1. A handful go to level 2. Even less than that goes to level 3. When you start getting to these upper 2, number 4 and 5, I think this is really the top of the heap when it comes to leadership. You're developing people and helping them move along with you. You're not afraid that they may be smarter than you. They may have more skills than you. They may surpass you. That's okay. You're bringing them along. The 5th is the pinnacle. People follow you because of who you are and what you represent. This is the highest level of leadership that you can reach. Think about the people that you wrote down in the very beginning on your piece of paper. You wrote down 2 people, right? Those, whoever you wrote down, they're probably 4s and 5s in most all cases. They probably are about as high up as you can go. Okay, the pinnacle. This next slide shows the same thing, and it's sort of laid out like in a stair sort of step. You could think of it that way. And there's nothing wrong with any of them. If you spend your whole career in a position number 1 as a peer supporter, there's nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly fine, right? Just know that there are levels that you can work towards. If you believe your role as a leader is about telling others what to do, you're probably not seeing their best work. As a leader, you need to do a lot of listening. As I said earlier, when you're at that that level of production, this is about asking people what they want and need, how you can help them get what they want and need, not you telling them what to do for you. It's the other way around. Being a really good leader is really about being selfless in the work you do. So we've talked about peers, we've talked about leadership. Now let's put those together. On your piece of paper, I want you to write down, what are the traits of a peer leader? Now you have some thoughts at the beginning. I asked you to think about, when you hear the term peer leadership, what comes to mind? Does it match up, or are there some new things? I'm guessing you probably have some new insights into peer leadership, and I want you to write those down. If you need to press pause, you certainly can. What you see now on your screen are description words that people have written down who've taken this class before you. So we add to this slide all these great ideas and thoughts that people had around peer leadership, and you have your own also, right? Inspiring, talking to the right person, spreading the message of hope, living a life in recovery, assertive, being at the table. These are all important. Tips for effectiveness as a peer leader. Knowledge, always be learning. Always be learning. If you're a peer support specialist and you need 20 hours of continuing education, a peer leader should be getting way more than 20 hours a year. You should be learning, consistently learning, and have an actual plan for your year and how you're going to easily surpass the 20 hours so you can continue to be at the top of your game. present a positive recovery messaging. Okay? We don't want to be talking down about recovery, always positive. We want to be aware of our position. Don't be like me, the catcher, who didn't understand that I was actually the leader of the team. As a peer supporter, you are a leader. Position equals power. Use it wisely. Don't overstep your bounds. Don't ask the people who are following you to do something you wouldn't do yourself. Like I said this earlier, be selfless, not selfish. Always think about the greater good. Take action, accomplish things. Remember the levels. You can't level up if you're not accomplishing anything. You can talk all day long about this and that and the other thing and how bad this is and that needs to change and the system's broken. But if you don't take action and accomplish things, you're not really demonstrating effectiveness as a peer leader. And we need to mentor others. These are the future leaders. Don't forget to bring people with you. I love this slide, this one and the next one. The recovery movement needs you. We need you to be a voice for positive change. We need you to share your recovery experience with others. We need you to help mentor others in recovery. We need you to help make your community a better place. We need you to speak up for those who cannot. We need you to advocate for recovery-oriented behavioral health services. We need to expand peer support. We need to create policies that stop things like seclusion and restraints. Anybody who's ever been psychiatrically hospitalized knows what I'm talking about. These are used as deterrents and threats towards people who are suffering. It needs to end. We need to work to decrease suicide rates in Montana. Far too high for our state. We need to increase funding, money for mental health services. And there may be others, because this is always evolving. This is always changing. Okay. Specifically, we need you as a peer leader. We need you in these particular places. We need you to be active in the peer network. We need you to be on our councils. We need you to be on our board. We need you to be active in the legislature, in your local advisory council, or your service area authority or behavioral health council. We need you to be active in the criminal justice reform movement that's just beginning now. We need you on social media. We need you doing recovery talks. And most importantly, we need you in decision-making positions. The best way to change things that I have found 10 years running Montana's peer network is changing it from the inside out. You can stand outside all day long with a sign asking for change. Week after week, month after month. But if you are on the inside sitting at the table with decision makers, or you are the decision maker, changes can happen in one meeting, in one afternoon, in one conversation. Policy changes, funding changes, service rate changes. Changes happen more effectively when you're on the inside. I will leave you with this. How will you change the world with your new skills? And that's the last thing I'm going to ask you to write down on this piece of paper. Was there something in here that inspired you? Was there a place that I said, we need you, that you went, oh, I could do that. Oh, I am in that place. Oh, I am the chair of my local advisory council. Pick one, focus on it, set some goals. How will you change the world? Now, at the beginning of the training, I talked about the peer advocacy and leadership training series. There are 6 trainings. We have something called a PAL passport. This is a picture of the passport. And for every training you take, we have a sticker that corresponds. So you can see the peer leadership portion. If you send an email to me, jim@mtpeernetwork.org, I will send you a sticker. And as you attend all 6 of them, you will fill in the image here. In the center, it's an oval, and you have to take action with all of your new skills. And if you visit our website at mtpeernetwork.org and you go to the PAL series page, it will talk about what the action items are. That's how you get the center one. Once you fill your entire passport, that would be all 6 trainings plus the middle, the taking action, we will give you a special and very unique gift from Montana's Peer Network. It's kind of an exciting thing that we're doing with the PAL series. We invite you to be part of it, and you can just email me. If you're a behavioral health peer support specialist and you'd like a certificate, a CEU certificate for this training, you can also email me at jim@mtpeernetwork.org. I want to thank you. You can give us a call or email if you have questions, comments, or you want to get involved with Montana's Peer Network. Thank you.